Robert Stanley here, and this is the Right to Reason podcast, episode 49, just a few episodes away from our 1-year anniversary. We'll be doing another best of episode where you'll hear this broadcast best moments from the last year. Continue to send me your favorite moments and suggestions by emailing me through our website, therighttoreason.com. I've already been sent some great ideas, and I hope they continue to come in. I need your help. Speaking of you, and what you can do to spread our message through the marketplace of ideas, share us with your friends and rate us on iTunes. Do not give me a rating other than 5 people. That's just craziness. My dad gave me a 3. Can you believe that? He said, Robert, I want to be objective. Don't do that. You can also support us at patreon.com/right. $1 gets you cool stuff, and the rewards go up from there. I'm thinking of adding some merch and swag to the website, so let me know if there's some items that you would be interested in having. I've already got a really cool Right to Reason coffee mug, and I'm thinking we could offer those along with shirts, hats, whatever. Let me know your thoughts. By the way, I'm happy to read your emails on the show. Just add that in the text so that I know I have your permission. All right, that's enough housekeeping. Today, we'll be trying to answer the question, where did it all come from? Eric Lounsbery has an 8-point argument for a creator god, and it gets pretty heated. That all happens right now.
In a world torn apart by a lack of reason,
or lease.
And I think it should be religion treated with ridicule and hatred and contempt. And I claim that right.
In the morning.
Hi, everybody. This is Robert Stanley from the Right to Reason podcast. And if you subscribe now, you'll get free.
Learn more about the broadcast at therighttoreason.com.
This is Eric Lounsbery, and you're listening to The Right to Reason.
It's the Right to Reason podcast.
And let me assure you that we are going to take our fight for economic justice, for social justice, for environmental sanity, for a world of peace.
The cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself.
Subscribe to us on YouTube. Like our page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Right to Reason 1.
If you base the design of rockets on science, they reach the moon. It works. Bitches.
Christain Apologist Eric Lounsbery has debated some very prominent names within the atheist community, such as George Smith, Matt Dillahunty, and Dan Barker. Eric, I'm really happy to have you on here today, buddy.
Robert, it's great to be here. I appreciate you giving me the offer to come and visit with you for a while.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor to be one of the people you've spoken to. Your list is pretty intimidating, so to be one of those people that you've butted heads with, as it were, is a great honor, and I'm happy to do this. Just for the listener, Eric and I have spoken multiple times in the past. I've really enjoyed every conversation that I've had with him thus far, and I expect no different with this one. But just so that the listener gets an idea of who you are, I understand you want to present 8 points for God's existence. But before we get to that, can I just run through some quick questions, and they can kind of understand where you stand on social justice issues or political issues or...
Rapid fire questions are awesome. Way to get started. Okay. Sure, Robert. Let's do it.
And totally unrepresentative and have no nuance to them whatsoever. So depending on how you answer, try not to read into it too much if you're the listener, because I'm sure Eric has a lot more reasons for what he thinks behind these things. But just to kind of get an idea here, gay rights. Where do you stand with gay? Should gay people be able to be married?
Should they be able to be married?
Legal marriage, that kind of thing.
The law gives them the right to do it. If you're asking for a biblical perspective of marriage, is gay marriage supported by the precepts that God laid down? The answer would be no, but the reason that the answer is no is because, as Lawrence Krauss has stated in numerous of his debates, in determining whether or not something is right or wrong or should be allowed, you have to determine the outcome of that action. And I'm convinced that if somebody was to sit down and put together the statistics, not only relating to the homosexual lifestyle, but even probably more so to a heterosexual lifestyle engaging in sex outside of the confines of marriage, when you look at the impact that that has had on society, according to the World Health Organization, it has literally cost hundreds of trillions and trillions of dollars relating to healthcare. It's cost hundreds of millions of lives. And so whenever somebody's going to set up
being gay has?
The impact of the gay life. Again, like Lawrence Krauss says, if you're going to go ahead and determine whether or not somebody should engage in a certain activity, you have to determine the outcome. So the reason that you as a parent set up rules for your child, like don't put the keys in the light socket, don't run out in the road, you do that because you know the impact of them carrying out that activity. And so when you see a parent who sets up rules as to what a child should or should not do, they do it because they love the child and they want things to go well for the child. And in the same way, when a government sets up rules, you don't have any problem with the government saying that it's wrong for somebody to commit treason, it's wrong for somebody to rob banks. You don't have any problem with that.
You're saying it's okay for God to say no gay stuff. So two guys shouldn't blow each other.
I'm saying that the reason that he does that is, and again, you in associating the gay movement, the gay lifestyle rather, the same kind of thing applies even more so with a heterosexual lifestyle where people are engaging in sex outside of marriage. Because look at how many women end up with sexually transmitted diseases, how many men. Look at how many babies die because a woman has chlamydia, they miscarry. They go to bed at night wondering whether or not they have a sexually transmitted disease. And let me ask you this, Robert. If the planet was to follow the biblical principle of not engaging in sex, whether it be heterosexual or homosexual, prior to marriage, are you aware of the fact that we would completely eliminate sexually transmitted diseases?
All right. Real quick, this is rapid fire. So
yes.
this is not the debate. I'm with you, though. I understand. I understand where you're coming from. We disagree on that entirely, but I get where you're coming from. How about transgender rights? You know, they should be able to go to the bathroom of their gender, and we should call them she if they identify as that particular gender, that sort of thing. Are you down with that? So
basically you're asking me if they identify as a cow, I should call them a cow.
Well, okay.
It's kind of interesting. It's kind of an interesting thought.
In reference to the rapid fire, I think you answered that by saying you're not pro transgender rights on that end. How about
Well, I don't think you should say it's rights. Does somebody have the right to go ahead? Does a man have the right to go ahead and say that he's a dog? I mean, yeah, he has the right to do that. He can walk around and go, "Oh, I'm a dog." If he wants to do that. What's the, I mean, you're free to do whatever you want when it comes to that. Does that mean that I'm going to be convinced that you're a dog? I'm not going to throw you a bone, okay? So if a woman tells me she's a man, I'm not
now
going
we're
to
back
give her
to
my
the gay thing,
jockstrap.
throwing bones. That was a joke. Anyway, so I'm with you, though. All right. So I in my house, okay, we're going to get to, like, feminism now. In my house, my wife and I make decisions together. We have equal authority over the household. I am not king of the castle, as it were, in the regard to how we make decisions. Would you say that I'm violating any kind of biblical standard of being the man of the house and, some kind of ancient philosophy of the man should run things or anything like that? Are you a misogynist?
No, we love putting those labels on people.
Yeah.
Okay, let's put it this way. I am convinced that the way that God laid things out in the scripture has a very significant, important, and eternal purpose and benefit for mankind. And that is that just like I, as a Christian, the scripture refers to the fact that my authority is Christ. In the same way, I believe that the family was set up to teach people about that relationship with Christ. And so when it comes to whether or not the man is the head of the household, I think the answer is yes. But let me just note quickly here, Robert, you have a secular job, right? You got a job, right?
Yeah.
You have a boss?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think it's wrong for your guy to be the boss?
Actually, it's a woman, Eric.
Okay.
Boom.
So
no, I'm just kidding. It's a dude. I was just kidding.
Okay. Well, you're a guy anyway, so it really wouldn't matter. But the point is, that, we in so many different areas of life, we willingly subject ourselves to somebody who's in a position of authority.
Just to break it down, do you think my wife should willingly subject herself to me?
Only if your wife is seeking to do the will of God and to reap the benefits of having a Christian family. Because let me just say this, Robert.
I'm going to record the soundbite. I'm going to play it for her over and over because I've been working on her, and she is not listening, buddy. And she needs to get the will of God in her, and I need to start running things I need that advice. I'm tired of doing dishes.
Maybe it's because you're running the household as an atheist, Robert.
That's what it is. I am ready for her to mow the lawn.
Okay, when we look in business, Robert, I bet you would be very hard pressed, if not, I think it might even be an impossible task for you to find 5 partnerships that are in the top Fortune 500, because we know that partnerships do not work. They don't work in business. They don't work in homes. And the reason that they don't is because when it comes down to what your kids are going to do, I mean, if your daughter comes to you at the age of 11 and she says, Dad, I want to start having sex with guys.
Whoa.
And you think no, but your wife said yes. I'm not saying she would, but if she did, are you going to go ahead?
Kind of close to home, Lounsbery.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying.
I see you're trying to make a point. So
we know that partnerships
what about
with
this conversation right here? Neither of us have the power. Like, we're both equal. Like, if you want to shut this down, you unplug. If I want to shut it down, I unplug. You know what I mean? If you wanted to punch me in the face and end the argument, you could. Or if I did vice versa, I could. But neither of us are in control, but we're both finding a way to have some kind of egalitarianism, some kind of equality within the discussion, because we care about something greater. We care about the marketplace of ideas, and we're both trying to allow one another to express our opinions equally in an open format. And that's kind of the way I think of marriage in a way.
Okay, try that with your boss at work. I want you to go to him and say, hey, listen, I know you're the guy in charge here, but I think that I'm a human being. I think I might even have a greater intellect than you. I think you should allow me to be equal boss with you. Okay? In no place in the marketplace does it work. And in homes where you operate outside the biblical principle, again, you're going to find that it doesn't work. But I want you to remember one thing,
I don't know if
Robert.
I should run my marriage like a business. My wife makes more money than I do. I don't want to.
You know what? Let me tell you, the reality is in plenty of businesses, and even in my business, a salesperson may make significantly more money than the person who's managing them. They may not. And I mean, I don't. But my point is there are plenty of businesses where they do that. Okay. But still the sales guy doesn't run the business. And I want you to remember one thing about the whole misogynistic thing. Okay. Remember this. If a man and a woman follow biblical principle, that in that marriage, that woman should be treated more like a queen than any woman on the planet. As a matter of fact, in Christianity, it says in 1 Peter chapter 3, that if a man does not treat his wife correctly, which it says he is to lay down his life and he's to love his wife like Christ loved the church. The scripture says if a man does not do that, it says God will shut up heaven to him, that his prayers will not be heard. I mean, what is a more terrifying thing to somebody who's a Christian than to think that they could call upon God and he's not going to answer? Well, God says, if you don't treat your wife that way... I remember
calling upon God and not answering. But in all respect, I wanted to do rapid fire, and this latest one about misogyny is more my fault than yours, because I did push back, and I should have just let you answer. But so I'll take a molly on that one.
It's fun.
How about science stuff, like climate change, evolution, Big Bang? Where do you fall with that kind of stuff?
You threw in a bunch of them. I don't spend a whole lot of time studying.
You believe man's
change.
Responsible for climate change? Just real quick.
Do I think he is?
Yeah.
I don't know the answers to that. Do I think that we're destroying the planet? Let's just put it this way. I mean, we're the ones who are bringing all the pollution and all that stuff into the world. You certainly don't see the deer and the bees and whatnot, but I don't know. Those things are outside my scope of study.
We're probably more similar on environmentalist stuff than we would be on gay rights, trans rights, LGBTQ, women's rights, feminism. How about evolution? You down with evolution?
Let's put it this way. I think the biblical account of creation is absolutely the way that things happen. I'm 100% certain that it is. Now, as to how the biblical account of creation is going to be reconciled with the science of creation, this is what we can do. We can only go by the things that we know. We know that the universe was created. I'm going to demonstrate and prove that it was created by God.
6 days? Was it created in 6 days? Like 6 literal days? Or could a day be a million years in the mind of God, or what have you?
Well, there's a number of nuances that could be considered in that. And for example, it could be that the 6 days relate to, I do believe that they are most likely a 24-hour period of time, but I don't necessarily believe that those 6 days mean from the moment that creation began that it was 6 days that were consecutive, okay, one following the other. It is very possible. I don't know the answer to this. It's possible that day one could have been the creation moment or shortly thereafter. Day two could have been literally 10,000 years, because the point is he worked for 6 days. So if you go ahead and take a year that has 365 days, and I asked you, Robert, how many days of the year did you work? Well, you didn't work 365. So out of the time span from creation until now, it's possible that there were 6 specific days in which God intervened to actually work to direct creation. It's a possibility.
So maybe a million years later, he did another 24 hours.
Could be. Here's what I know, Robert. Here's what I'm absolutely certain of. When we get the answer, like so many times when I have had questions in the scripture that I wasn't sure how to reconcile those questions, and I would go and I would think, man, I have no idea how this is going to be able to be reconciled. It seems impossible. But then I would go and I would do what it says in James, where it says, if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God. I would ask for wisdom. I would study. I would get the answer. And things that I thought were absolutely, utterly, totally, completely irreconcilable, I found out not only were they not, but how I can clearly reconcile things that even to this day atheists argue are completely irreconcilable. And I'm confident that's exactly what's going to happen with creation.
Well, the third one was about the Big Bang, and I appreciate that you're scientifically minded about some of them. We obviously disagree about Genesis-style creation. I wanted to ask you about Big Bang, but I understand you have 8 points that you believe will trounce any atheist argument, and you're going to completely destroy me today with these 8 arguments. But just for the listener's sake, we're talking about the concept of something coming from nothing, or nothing coming from nothing, ex nihilo nihil fit, originally from the Greek philosopher Parmenides, referenced in Homer, and later referenced Shakespeare's King Lear, where the king says nothing will come of nothing, as well as the lyrical genius of the musical philosopher Billy Preston. So before you present your 8 points, buddy, I wanted to tell you this is how I got to know you. I had first heard you when you called in to the Atheist Experience, and you said this.
Did you ever used to watch Seinfeld?
On rare occasions. I wasn't like a regular viewer.
Is that right? You know who Kramer is, don't you?
Yes.
Okay. There was an episode where Kramer was taking karate. You didn't by chance see that, did you?
Yeah, with the little kid. He had a child in his class.
Exactly. Okay, so just to go ahead and set it up, here's what's happening. Kramer's taking these karate classes, and he's inviting Jerry and Julie to come down and watch him do his testing, and he's talking about how he's dominating the class. And they're like, really? Wow, that's awesome. And they get on to his testing. And when they get to the class, they find out that the people that are in his class are all basically between 9 and 13 years old. And he's just, he's fighting these kids and dominating the class. Well, the reason that I bring that up is because Kramer was getting this big high out of, the fact that he was number one in the class. Mm-hmm. And it sort of reminded me of the opportunities that I've had to listen to a few of your shows. I haven't listened to a lot of your shows.
Yeah, I knew you were going this direction.
And you know what I'm going to say.
Yeah, and I know that it's asinine because we take on anybody. We've had professional apologists on here, and I run around the country debating them, including Abdu Murray just this past week. And I'll debate William Lane Craig as soon as he stops being a coward.
And can I add that nobody on our program has any sort of degree in theology, has any sort of degree in philosophy, has any sort of debating history. Matt has just recently started debating because he's being asked. We don't have any. We're not professional.
And I haven't run around to anybody saying how I'm kicking the asses of all the people in the class either.
So no, you're right, and I'll give you all of that. And as a matter of fact, you know as well as I do, William Lane Craig will not debate you, and we all know why.
Because he's a coward.
I guess my point in saying that, and I don't want you to take my point wrong, my point is simply that it has the appearance so many times, it can have the appearance to the listeners that your position is the right position.
It is.
And I'm just saying that it makes it a whole lot easier coming across that way when you're on a court that's your home, your home field, and you're bringing in guys that basically are, it's like a beginning tennis player going up against Andre Agassi.
Well, thanks for that comparison, but it's also easier when you're right. William Lane Craig and the higher theologians and stuff that don't want to debate, they don't have any arguments that are any better than any that anybody has ever called in and presented. We've addressed every contemporary argument for the existence of God, and when people don't call in and present them, we've actually gone out of our way to present them for people. There's no better arguments out there, so it's not like,
Wait, I still have to address, I don't understand, I guess, the connection with Andre Agassi, because what is it, like, for example, let me just use myself. What is it in my background that makes you think that I am somehow a professional atheist?
You know what, I'm not, and don't take this offensively, I'm just not really that familiar with, I've only watched just a few shows. I'm just saying from the I'm not necessarily addressing you, but let me just say this.
What gives Matt any kind of an edge? Like, what makes you think Matt is some kind of a professional, or that he somehow has...
Let me tell you, excellent question. Here's the reason why. Because 90% of the people who call in have probably never, at least a theist, have probably never studied theology and apologetics, and so Matt has fielded tons of questions, and he also is simply able to ask questions that may be apologetics 101, but the person who calls in doesn't know those answers.
Okay, well, shame on them for not studying their own religion.
Let me just say this. This is what I would like to do, Matt, if you're willing to. I'd like to go ahead and debate you.
Sure, when? I mean, do you have some way to arrange this?
How about right now?
I'll debate you on air. Well, no, because what I want to do is let me just say what we need to do is, in order to go ahead and debate, I would like to set it up where we have a formal procedure, and a significant part of that procedure needs to be cross-examination.
And there you were challenging Matt Dillahunty to a debate, which you actually got on the show Dogma Debate, and you made a really fantastic argument. Here it is.
This 15 minutes, Eric, is designed for you to offer your rebuttal. During your rebuttal of Matt's opening statement, you are allowed to introduce other evidence. That's what this segment is for. So you have 15 minutes, not 10, to offer a rebuttal to Matt's open. Are you ready to begin?
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead. Your timer starts now.
Okay, Matt, you stated that when we go ahead and appeal to God as a answer for the creation of the universe, that what we're doing is we're appealing to we're trying to solve a mystery by appealing to a bigger mystery. Just want to point out that the thing is, evidence for a claim that when you give evidence to go ahead and solve a mystery by appealing to a bigger mystery, that does not mean that your argument is fallacious, because just imagine this. The SETI program listens to outer space to hear something if it indicates that life is out there. And when the pings or whatever is heard are listened to, and it is determined that it shows that intelligent life exists, wouldn't this be appealing to a bigger mystery? Because now the mystery that is in front of you is far greater than simply determining that it was a message that indicates intelligent life. Next, suppose you find a body lying dead on the sidewalk. You can't tell if they died of natural causes or if they were murdered. If the mystery is solved by forensics, then indeed the person was murdered. Now a bigger mystery opens up. You have to try to determine who murdered the person. So just because we appeal to a bigger mystery, this same kind of thing could be said of the Big Bang. You know, when we go ahead and come to the conclusion that a Big Bang occurred, that also appeals to a bigger mystery.
And Eric, with that, I think you did a great point by saying you can't solve a mystery by appealing to a bigger mystery. or at least Matt, that was Matt's argument, and you were showing that a lot of stuff works that way. And what I appreciate about these kinds of discussions is hopefully we're both willing to change our minds. Let me get back to that. But first, I appreciate how you sharpen my reasoning. You sharpen my logic whenever you show me that that's not an argument I should make. And that is an argument that I have made in the past. And I recognize after you presented that point that maybe I shouldn't make that argument. It's just not a good one. So, let that go. Separate the wheat from the chaff, to reference your scriptures, right? And move on. And hopefully I also sharpen your arguments. But would you be willing to change your mind, at least?
Change my mind about what? God's existence?
Sure. I mean, I would be willing to change my mind.
Absolutely.
At the essence of our conversation, if that's not available, if that's not an option, then I think it kind of delegitimizes the discussion a little bit.
Actually, it might make the discussion even more potent, because if you're asking me if I'm willing to change my mind about God's existence, if you consider that question on the same kind of level of would I change my mind about the existence of my children that I know exist, that I have a relationship with, I can't imagine a circumstance under which that would happen. And since I know God very, very well, I find that I would definitely be able to go ahead and say, you know what, I'm not going to be a Christian. I'm not going to follow Christ. But since I know God, even if I turned away from him, I would say, if somebody came up to me, hey, are you a Christian? I could say, no, I chose not to follow Christ. I would never say that God does not exist or that Jesus does not exist any more than I would say that my children do not exist. I know them. I know God. I have a personal, intimate relationship with the Lord where I know his heart and he knows my heart. And obviously I continue to know, just like in any relationship, the more time you spend with a person, the more you get to know him. But so to that extent, would I ever deny his existence? Of course not. I know him. How could I deny it?
Is God listening to this conversation right now?
Without a doubt. There's nothing that God doesn't hear.
Just to be clear, before we start debating the existence of God, you're telling me there is no possibility of you changing your mind about it.
As I mentioned, in the same kind of likelihood that there's a possibility of changing my mind about my kids existing. Do you understand? I know my kids. I have a relationship with my children. How could I come to a place where I deny that my children exist? Doesn't mean that my relationship with them would be great, but in the same way, I know God, Robert. Unlike a lot of the apologists that you've talked with, you ask them, do you know God? Are you certain he exists? Many of them have said no. I don't even understand that. I actually got together with a very notable apologist in the past couple of weeks, and he specifically sat across the table from me, and he is one of the biggest defenders of the Christian faith. And I asked him, I said, I talked with him about William Lane Craig's debate with Krauss, where when push came to shove, Krauss asked him, William Lane Craig, if he was certain that God existed. And William Lane Craig said, no, I don't even understand that. Because, and I was sharing that with this other apologist friend of mine who's a very good friend. And he said the same kind of thing. And I went ahead and I told him, I said, this strongly concerns me because it is so foreign to me, because when I became a Christian, according to what the scripture says, you're reconciled to God and you have fellowship with Christ. And that is my life. I have fellowship with him. Like the scripture says, how can you have fellowship with somebody that you don't even know if they exist? It's the most absurd line of thinking that I can even imagine. For somebody to come to me and say, do you know God? And for me to say, oh no, I don't know him. I just hope he exists. I would be terrified to die if I lived that way. And I'm not terrified to die in the slightest. So it's a foreign concept to me, Robert. I know God. And anybody who knows me, my family members, even if they're not Christians, everybody who knows me, who's in a close part of my life, everybody knows that I know God. It's not some big mystery. And you got to understand, when I tell you that I know God, I'm not like the guys like Benny Hinn and the Pentecostal wacko jobs that go around and act like they know God. I mean, those people
Dollar. He was my favorite.
Yes, I want you to understand. People ask me, are those men raised up by God? And I tell people, I say, yes, they are. But they're raised up by God to show the foolishness of Christians, because any person who would get alone with the Lord on their face, getting to know his heart and study the scripture, would absolutely recognize. They would not be deceived for a moment when it comes to people like, what was the guy that was exposed by James Randi? Tilton? Robert? No, not Robert Tilton. He's another whack job. Peter Popoff.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So I don't live that way, Robert, and my family knows.
He's still preaching.
Yeah, and you know what? People are still sending him money. Why? Again, because it's a demonstration that these people don't know God. It's a demonstration that they don't know the Word of God. Because and again, that's why when somebody asks me, are these men raised up by God? Yes, they're raised up by God to show you the foolishness of not spending time with the Lord and not trusting the Scripture. Because anybody who knows the Word of God, anybody who knows God, would never be deceived by Benny Hinn, Creflo Dollar, Ken Copeland, all of those.
Kenneth Copeland. He said he needed money to have a private airplane because people were demonic on regular commercial airplanes.
Yeah. Well,
anyway, we're getting way off track. You have 8 points in reference to the Big Bang and where does everything come from. Hit me with it. Let's see what we got, and let's have a fun, productive convo about that.
All right, pal. You got your seatbelt on?
I'm ready, and I hope you brought your lunch.
You're going to make a crash landing here, so be careful. All right. Point number 1, Robert, is existence does not come from non-existence. I'll state real simple proofs on this.
I disagree. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. Existence doesn't come from non-existence, as far as we know. Based on everything that we have, I got no beef with you on that one.
Okay, and for the benefit of the listener, let me just state a real quick question. Can a fire ever come into existence by way of a married bachelor? Married bachelors don't exist, and therefore they can't be the cause of something that came into existence. So, again, usually that's not argued, but sometimes it is, so that's a quick point. Point number 2, something exists. Kind of difficult to argue against that, but believe it or not, Robert, I've actually had atheists get into huge debates about it, and I'm just like, okay, well, let's move on. If you want to argue that, you can go, play in the rubber room over there.
For the record, on the first one,
yes,
based on information that we have, that's fine. All right.
Okay.
But to make that like a solid axiom, I'd say easy. You're talking about some big shit here, but I have no pushback on 1 or 2.
Okay. All right. And let me just make one other point here, Robert. Any of my points, if somebody disagrees with them, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Yeah.
All I ask is go ahead and present your evidence, and let's see if the vast majority of people would agree with you on it, because I think that most of these are very straightforward. They're either logically founded or you have so much evidence to support it that certainly I have a strong basis upon which to make these claims. So let me go to point number 3.
Numero 3, senor.
Something is eternal. Now, hold on. Let me just make my points, and then you can go ahead.
Okay.
This follows logically from premise 1 and 2, because if existence cannot come from non-existence, and yet something exists, then something, even if we don't know what that something is, something must necessarily be eternal. Otherwise, existence came from non-existence, which is absurd. So again, I'm just simply saying something is eternal. You could offer 100,000 answers as to what is eternal.
Can I give you my understanding of the eternality and why your statement I don't disagree with it, but also why I would add a little caveat.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think that just because the universe has an end or a beginning or what have you, not to jump ahead or anything, but just that things don't appear to be eternal. Everything has an end, right? Second law of thermodynamics, what have you. That means that post hoc ergo propter hoc. It doesn't mean that the thing before us is the cause for this, right? So, it doesn't mean that the thing that precedes us has to be the eternal thing. I think that there's somewhat of not a logical infinite regress, but a natural infinite regress, right? In the sense of you come from your parents come from their parents come from their parents, right? That doesn't mean that your parents were eternal. It just means that there's this constant chain of events.
But whatever is there has to ultimately go back to something that is eternal.
But let me finish. I would agree with you in the sense that maybe that entire spectrum of cause and effect, that itself has eternality. And in that sense, I wouldn't necessarily push back at the way you framed that. I would just kind of clarify to say, I don't think that the thing that necessarily preceded us has to be eternal, but maybe if
I
you
would
look
agree
at
with you on that, Robert.
the whole spectrum of cause and effect has some kind of eternal essence to it. Sure, maybe. So once again, I am not disagreeing with number 3.
Okay. Next, the universe is not eternal. Now, evidence that's commonly given by scientists for this includes such things as the expanding universe, the radiation echo, the laws of thermodynamics, and hot spots in the universe. If the universe was eternal, there would be an equilibrium of temperature. There'd be no hot spots. But
hold on. What do you mean by the universe? You mean everything, or you mean like the observable universe, or what?
I mean the space-time universe that we exist in. That there was a time that this did not exist in any form, fashion. No, there was no time, no space, no foaming matter, no anything. It did not exist in any form or fashion.
All right, rock and roll.
Okay, Robert, so this is from a YouTube video called Debate, Atheists versus Christians, Krauss plus Sherman plus D'Souza plus Hutchinson.
We have a plausible explanation of how a universe could precisely come from nothing. If you ask what would be the characteristics of a universe that came from nothing, by natural laws, it would be precisely the characteristics of the universe we observe. And it didn't have to be that way. It could have been another way. And by nothing, and my opponents will say that by nothing, I'm not talking about nothing, but I'm talking about nothing. No particles, no radiation, no space, no time, and even no laws of physics.
Okay, now I want to play one other where he says something very similar, but I feel it's important to play it. And in this debate, this comes from a YouTube video of Lawrence Krauss versus Hamza, the Muslim. It says Islam versus atheism debate. And this one is not real long, but it's a little bit longer. It's going to start with Hamza asking a question: is the universe of finite existence?
Do you agree that the universe started at a finite time ago?
Do I agree?
Yes. Because you made that point.
13.72 billion years ago?
Yes.
It's as far back as we can go to about the first millionth of a
10 to the minus 43 or something.
Well, no, empirically we know it to about a millionth of a second. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Good.
Good.
Exactly. So that I said was suggestive evidence for my deductive reasoning. Okay?
Well, it was suggestive evidence for the Rig Veda, Akhenaten.
Yeah, I know. Good. Let's carry on now.
It's just as beautiful. It was created.
I agree. But then I said, but since we have the best possible explanation, which is an uncreated creator, or there is a cause that was not caused, because I gave you all the logical explanation. This is the point. You should be attentive.
No, I have the best explanation. It came from nothing by physics.
Yes, but your nothing, is it really like nothing?
No space, no time. Our universe didn't exist.
So there was
no quantum foam. There was nothing where our universe existed. There was no space and no time. Everything we see, this room that we're in, did not exist.
When your friend...
Okay, there you go, Robert. So
no space, no time.
Exactly. No space, no time. He said everything in our universe did not exist. So again, I think that's supportive. The universe is not eternal. If somebody's going to argue that it is eternal, then I'm going to leave it up to that person to go ahead and make those claims.
And I am not the person that would make that argument. I agree with number 4. Proceed, sir. I kind of have a feeling the listener right now is like, Robert, it's an 8-point argument. You've given him 4. What are you doing? He's going to trick you. Okay, but I'm trying to be honest here. I can't disagree with the first 4 points thus far. Eric, I feel like I'm walking into the lion's den here, buddy. Proceed.
Okay, Robert, point number 5. Whatever is eternal transcends the universe.
Transcends? You're using weird words.
Is beyond. Let me go ahead and finish this up, and I think that
Sorry, I should not have interrupted you. My mistake. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Okay, so I'm going to argue that this premise follows logically from premise 3 and 4, and premise 3 is something is eternal. So regardless of what it is, we know something is eternal. Again, at this point in time, it could be a multiverse. It could be a number of things. Point number 4 is the universe is not eternal. So we know something is eternal because it has to be, but we know that it's not the universe. So therefore, it logically follows that since something is eternal yet the universe is not, then something has to transcend it, unless you think this is the argument of a light-minded theist. Let me once again go ahead and appeal to my strongest theological supporter, Lawrence Krauss.
Okay, fair enough.
So listen to what Lawrence Krauss says in this video. The point that I want you to note is that he is going to go ahead and he is going to state that on the basis of the evidence, which he'll specifically refer to that it is the evidence. I just want you to know, this is what he's going to say. He's going to say, I don't like the multiverse, but I've learned to conform my beliefs to the evidence of reality. He says, we've been driven to this position. We have been driven to it by measurements.
Right. Let's let him say it.
Okay. I just want to make sure you listen to those words.
My opponents might argue that the multiverse, which our universe might have spontaneously been created in, was created by physicists because they don't like God, because it's eternal and exists outside our universe, the same characteristics that God is supposed to have. But it wasn't created because we don't like God, although I don't like God. We've been driven to it by measurements. In fact, I don't even like the multiverse, but I've learned to force my beliefs to conform to the evidence of reality.
Okay.
He's not defending the multiverse right there. He's just saying that that's a possibility and that he will conform his beliefs to whatever evidence leads to. But evidence is not leading to the multiverse.
Okay. Robert,
that's
this
a
is what I'm
theory
gonna
in
say.
the colloquial sense of theory.
Okay. Now, I just want you to note that what his words were here. He said, we have been driven to this position by measurements. And now understand, he's
doesn't
saying
mean that they arrived at it.
No, I'm saying that they've been driven to it by measurements. In other words, that something is transcendent and eternal. And he says, I don't like the multiverse, but notice his exact words. I do not like the multiverse, but I've learned to conform my beliefs to the evidence of reality.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm
But
going
just
to
so
leave it
you
up to
know,
the listener.
You are adding implication to his statement. Okay. No one, including Lawrence Krauss, in the cosmological community claims that they have evidence of a multiverse.
I agree that we don't have the evidence. Like, it's not like we found it and we can measure it.
Right.
I don't believe that's his point, Robert. His point is exactly what my point is in each of the first 5 premises. And that is, there has to be something. We have already concluded, and there's been no argument to the fact that something is eternal and it's not this universe. So therefore, we know something is eternal and transcendent.
Well,
that's what he's saying. So he's simply arguing.
Just for the record, whenever I agreed to something as eternal, I wasn't excluding the universe from that category. My understanding of eternality was the cause and effect that occurs. Something from something leads to something. Something doesn't come from nothing. In that sense, I'm saying the universe is a part of that, right? So I'm not saying something is eternal beyond the universe. I wouldn't say that. So that's where I have trouble with the cause of the universe is transcendent from the universe. The effect is not the same thing as the cause. So in that sense, I would agree it's transcendent. But we need to not get too wacky out there where we're saying it must have nothing to do with the universe. I'm not saying that. Did that not make sense? Did I say that correctly?
I find that all kind of confusing.
Okay, I'm not trying to be confusing. I'm just saying, whenever I said something is eternal, I was referring to cause and effect itself. The universe might have come from a multiverse. The concept of nothing might be flawed, and therefore perhaps there was a universe before this universe, or what have you.
Okay, here's the thing. I would simply say this, Robert. If you're going to go ahead and you're going to make those claims, my claims
they're not claims, they're hypotheticals.
Right. Oh, okay. And you can go ahead and do that, but I think that the difference is that the claims that I'm making logically are irrefutable and by science are irrefutable. And if somebody disagrees with that, it's okay. You don't have to agree with them.
If you're saying that by science your claims are irrefutable, and I apologize that we haven't gotten through all your points yet. I feel bad about attacking anything you're saying generally without you being able to make your argument. So give me a grain of salt. Maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself. But if you're going to say these are scientifically irrefutable, why wouldn't science agree with you? Like, science isn't claiming there's the God of the Bible that created everything.
You know what, Robert? And we're going to get into that question about the suppressing life of the atheist. Okay,
God.
So let's continue the points.
Eric, that's conspiracy theory.
No. We'll go ahead and I will prove my case, Robert. And again, if at any point in time you feel that any of the claims that I've made, that you can prove them wrong, I will go ahead and I just want you to state the claim and then prove it wrong.
Were you on number 6 or 5 last?
I'm going to be on number 6. And again, I just want you to know that anybody who listens to Lawrence Krauss.
I had issues with the semantics of what a universe is in number 4. Number 5, I don't like the word transcendent, but moving on. It's starting to get a little shaky, though, just so you know. Please continue with 6.
Yes, and I want you to know that the shakiness is only relating to maybe the nervousness that you have of the power of the points, Robert. So
you're triggering my cognitive dissonance.
You might want to take a pill or something, because Lawrence Krauss so far is in agreement with everything that I've said. Okay, next, point number 6. Whatever is eternal is a source of all things that are brought into existence. We kind of have already concluded this, but there's a reason that I bring that out, and that is because anything that's brought into existence must ultimately have come from what is eternal. Otherwise, existence would come from non-existence, which is absurd. So again, it follows logically.
Hold on. In the same way that I was trying to say that your parents aren't eternal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
I understand your point. I even agree with that part of it, Robert.
But the cause and effect of biology seems to have some kind of continuing force of creating life, right? Yes. And I don't want to get too deep into evolution, because I know you and I might butt heads a little bit, and I don't want to change topics, but I'm just saying, in that same sense, are you okay with saying that the thing that preceded the universe doesn't necessarily have to be that which is eternal? Can we agree on that?
I absolutely have no problem whatsoever, okay. But I will say this. Let me add in this little caveat. Whatever that was would ultimately still owe its existence to something that is eternal. Because if it's not eternal, and this is the point, whatever is eternal is the source of all things brought into existence. So even, let's say, for example, that it's God, and maybe God created a multiverse that would not be eternal. And that multiverse might have been the thing that brought in our universe into existence, and therefore the thing that brought our universe into existence was not eternal, but it ultimately owed its origin to something that is eternal. My point is that anything brought into creation must ultimately owe its existence back to whatever is eternal. And that's what point number 6
Do you accept that perhaps just the constant function of cause and effect in itself could be the eternality that causes this?
No.
In the same way that a tree comes from a seed, but that seed came from a tree, and that tree came from another seed. There is some kind of cause and effect that's happening.
How about this? How about I finish my points, because we'll.
Fair enough.
It's an important discussion.
No, you're right. You're right. I'm jumping ahead. Go ahead.
So let me move on to point number 7. Whatever is eternal is the source of all power existing, and again, it follows logically, but it also follows scientifically that no effect can be greater than its cause. So if you take all of the power, for example, that's just found in our universe, and if you go and you look at what the present numbers are, from what I understand, regarding the size of the universe, there's like 100 billion trillion stars in the universe. And since this universe is not eternal, whatever brought it into existence had to have at least the power that's found in 100 billion trillion stars. Otherwise, the effect would have been greater than the cause. And I don't think it's even possible for us to rationalize something like that. Plus, it goes contrary to all of science. So whatever is eternal has to be the source of all power existing, which means whatever is eternal has all power. Otherwise, something would have come from nothing, which is absurd.
This is number 7?
Okay. That's number 7, and believe it or not, we're already at point number 8.
Well, we're ready for 8, right? You weren't saying 8.
When you're ready for me to say it.
Okay, but just repeat 7 one more time in the most condensed form, if you don't mind. Maybe you lost me.
Sure. Whatever is eternal, because we know something is, has to be the source of all power existing.
Because otherwise something would have come from nothing. I would say that that's a priori truth. I mean, of course,
okay.
Sure.
Okay. So point number 8.
I have less contention to 7 than I do to 1 or 2 even. So we're cool.
Okay. All right. Well,
but I did have some issue with...
You have the liberty of proving any of those wrong. You just state it and give your evidence and let the audience decide.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the ones before this, I had some semantic issues with, but I'm with you on 7.
Okay.
Continue to 8.
Whatever is eternal is intelligent. And I'm sure we're not going to have any pushback at all on this.
Why? Why would you think we wouldn't have pushback on that?
Exactly.
Oh, you were being sarcastic. Sorry. Okay.
I was being sarcastic.
Yeah,
okay.
that one's very different from the first 7. Where even there were some issues with what do you mean by universe? Do you mean all things or just the cosmos or what have you? What do you mean by transcendence? Like with this one, there's no confusion. Like you are blatantly saying the creator was intelligent. You just jumped right into intelligent design, and I feel like that you might be making a little bit of too much of a leap there.
Okay, let's see. Because again, Robert, I am a man that takes his position by the evidence. And just so you know, when I debated George Smith, not only was George given the opportunity to argue against this, but so was pretty much the entire audience and the scientist. And you may recall, because I sent you the document that shows when the atheist community wrote about the debate, they said it was very unsatisfying watching an atheist get trounced.
So you're saying there is no logical argument against number 8.
What I'm going to give the evidence, and I'm going to give you the opportunity and any person in your audience to go ahead and argue against it. Okay?
All right, so now, bring what you got, buddy.
Let me go ahead and give you some examples as to why the arguments that I'm going to present are not, as so often is argued by the atheist, the God of the gaps. Okay? Because the God of the gaps argument...
Yeah, you're already ahead of me. That's where I was leading, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, the God of the gaps comes into existence when we have an effect and we have no idea how that effect could have come into being. And so some bizarre mental person says, oh, God did it. Okay?
Right.
I am as strongly against that kind of argumentation as any atheist. Okay? So in other words, if you're going to make a claim as to what the source of an effect was, what caused it, you have to be able to demonstrate that it is a sufficient and a necessary cause. Okay? So in other words, you have to be able to...
Wait. I don't think you meant to say that. And I hate to critique because I know you're laying it out and I'm interrupting you. I don't think you meant to say sufficient and necessary because those are true logical and philosophical terms that have meaning. And like I'm actually throwing you an olive branch here. You don't want to say sufficient and necessary.
Oh, I do.
Okay.
Well, let's go ahead and move with it, and let's see if that's not where I wanted to go. I do believe that I want to say sufficient and necessary.
Okay. I thought those were just kind of like you were just throwing out some colloquial kind of.
Nope.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to ask you a few quick questions, Robert. If you were to get home one day and your window in the front of your house, you live in a house or apartment?
House.
Okay. You live in a house. Your front window, the biggest.
Remember,
window you have
I'm man of the house.
Yeah.
We determined that. I run things.
You are the boss.
I'm going to tell my wife everything you said, and she's about to make some changes.
But remember, since it's not a Christian home, she's probably going to give you some feedback on it. She might kick you in the seat of the pants. Okay. I suggest you make sure you have plenty of money because you're probably going to have to go buy dinner tonight. So.
All right. Go ahead.
Anyways, so you come home and the front window is completely shattered. Okay? And let's say you were on vacation for a long time. I want you to go ahead and list a number of causes that could have created that kind of an effect.
All right, so somebody threw a rock, some random kids were doing vandalism, maybe someone broke in the house. That'd be my first thought, actually, the third one. Somebody probably is inside the house right now and I have to kill them. Maybe, depending on which way the glass was laying, maybe it broke from inside out. You know, my kids are goofballs. Maybe they threw something and broke it.
Give a sufficient cause, not...
Maybe the dog did it. I don't know. Okay. I'll stop. Go ahead.
All right, so here's the thing. Let me ask you this. So a rock could have done it?
Yeah.
Could somebody have used a hammer?
Yeah.
Could they have used a steel bar?
Sure.
If I told you that I would pay you $1,000 if you could come up with a list of 100,000 things that are possible,
like objects that could break the window? Yeah.
Could you do it?
I could probably... It'd be hard to 100,000's a big number, but sure, I could come up with.
You could come up with a huge number of possible causes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's suppose you came home and you have a little tiny round circle that's about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit less than that, in diameter. And I ask you, Robert, list the possible number of causes that you can, if you came home and you saw that, what are you immediately going to think was the cause of that round little hole?
A hole in the window?
Yes. Have you ever seen a round little hole in your window?
Yeah, I guess a bullet would be my first thought. How big was it again?
Like less than 1/4 of an inch. Real small.
So obviously a bullet, yeah. It wouldn't have shattered the window, but it would have gone through it so quickly that the window stayed stable. Sure.
Okay. Maybe a BB?
Yeah, could be, sure.
Okay, so now, if you had to list 10,000 causes for that, would you be able to do it?
Would I be able to do what?
List 10,000 causes, possible causes.
I could certainly list maybe like 10 to 100, but yeah,
okay.
I'm following where you're going. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's suppose that you come home and you walk into your dining room and there's a piece of paper, and that piece of paper has one corner that is black, charred, missing. There's ash on the table, and you have to come up with a cause other than heat that created that effect. How many causes can you think of at the moment?
Yeah, I couldn't do it. That one's definitely a result of heat. I feel like you're really leading the witness here. We started with like someone broke in the house. Now someone's shooting my house. Now my part of my house is burning. Like I'm very nervous. Go ahead.
Okay. Here's the point that I'm making, Robert. When a detective goes to a crime scene and there's a murder, he's going to go ahead and he's going to see the effect, and he's going to immediately start looking at things that are possible causes. Okay? Now, when it came to that little teeny hole in your window that you said a bullet or a BB could have done, what if I told you that a semi truck driving at 140 miles an hour hit that window full blast? Do you think that could have been do you think that sounds like a possible cause?
As to the first reason, when the window broke?
No, when it was the little teeny hole.
No.
Yeah. Okay, my point is this. When somebody's going to go ahead and offer a cause, automatically in our minds, we cannot help but live by a principle called the principle of uniformity. Are you familiar with that?
Sure. And just for the record, this is basic abductive reasoning, the whole detective.
Okay. So my point is that the principle of uniformity says that similar effects have similar causes. Okay?
Yeah.
And the reason that we can know that whatever is eternal is intelligent, it is because the principle of uniformity reveals only one known cause for the origination of the type of functional specified complexity we see in a simplest living cell, and that cause is intelligence. Now, I want a couple minutes.
Hold on.
Let me go ahead and make my point, and then you can argue against it if you don't mind. It's important for me to lay the groundwork.
Yes,
here.
I mean, you're just using terms that are. Like,
okay.
What do you mean by specified complexity? What is that?
Specified functional complexity is the type of complexity that we see in a cell where a certain arrangement of matter has to occur in order for the functionality of what takes place in a cell. In order for it to occur, it has to be both specified and it has to be very specified, which means the arrangement has to occur in a certain manner. Okay, it can't just be willy-nilly like tipping up a box of tiles from a Scrabble box.
Isn't that everything, though? Isn't everything meeting that definition?
I don't understand your question.
I mean, if you're saying specified complexity has to be the cause of every effect.
No, I said the only known cause capable of producing the effect of the resulting effect of specified functional complexity like we see in a cell is intelligence. In other words, what I'm saying, Robert,
you don't even have to say a cell. You could say a rock. You could say a pine
rock
cone.
Is not
you could
specified
say
functional complexity, Robert.
I'm sorry, what?
A rock is not specified functional complexity. We do not look at a rock and go, wow, that is very complex and specified and functional.
But it is very complex, and by your definition of specificity, it meets all your needs. Everything's specified complexity by that definition, unless I misunderstood you.
Maybe you're not I don't know how much time you've spent studying the concept of specified complexity.
One more time, just for the listener, not for me, because I'm 100%.
Okay. When you
explain specified complexity.
When you go ahead and you look at complexity. Complexity can result if you have a lumberyard and a tornado goes through it and everything is scattered everywhere and you have a million pieces. That is something that you would say is very complex, but it's not specified and it's not functional. But if you take a look at a house or any type of machine, it is specified, complex, and functional.
That destruction that you're looking at after a tornado, its function is to be the result of the tornado's destruction. It is specified. Those objects are laying exactly where they specifically need to be laying, and the complexity that is there is a direct result of what happened in the same way as a house. Now, you can say a house has intelligent design, and the destruction after a tornado does not, but they are both specified, and they are both complex equally.
No, it's not specified, Robert. I don't think you understand this concept. No offense, but I don't know if you've done much research regarding functional specified complexity, because if it was specified, what that means is that there was a particular purpose that a certain part of that lumber yard ended up in the certain spot it did to carry out a certain function. There's no function. What is the function of a lumber yard that's been scattered everywhere? There's no function to a lumberyard scattered. And if you went in and you moved any of those pieces and parts, what would it matter? It means nothing. But if you move the pieces and parts inside of a machine or a computer, then disaster results. Okay? If you move the pieces and parts inside of a cell, disaster results.
I'm very familiar with specified complexity. It's Dembski's challenge against chance.
Okay.
Chance is not perpetuated as a cause.
Dembski argues irreducible complexity, and that is not part of my argument.
Chance is not perpetuated as a cause for the cosmos or abiogenesis or anything like that. Nobody's saying this just happened by chance.
I did say it happened by chance. That's not my point. My point is
specified complexity is challenging chance itself.
Robert, again, you need to understand what my argument is. My argument is that the only known cause capable of originating the kind of specified complexity that we have in a cell, because you are aware of the fact that inside every single living cell, there are literally thousands upon thousands of molecular machines, okay? They are not just clumps of lumber and brick thrown about by a tornado hitting a lumber yard. These items have to be arranged in a very specific order and pattern in order to carry out the function for which they serve. And the only known cause capable of originating that kind of complexity is intelligence. And if somebody is going to argue against this, Robert, I would ask you this. Where do we see functional? Where do we see machines?
You're done.
Yes.
You're done with this. You were going right on track. You were making some really solid stuff. I disagreed with some semantic issues, but I wasn't pushing back too much. But this point number 8 is just devolving into intelligent design. And come on.
You're gonna die on this point, and I'm gonna prove it to you.
All right.
You're gonna die on it, okay?
All right.
This is what I want you to do. I want you to imagine, get off planet Earth, because planet Earth already has living, complex, functionally specified, complex organisms on it. And so what I want you to do is I want you to go to any other planet in the universe. And on that planet,
For the record, we've only been to one other planet.
Okay, let's just go ahead and go to that one planet that has no life whatsoever on it, Robert.
All right, we're on Mars.
I want you to imagine that you're on Mars, and now you're going to go ahead and argue how natural law can work to organize material in such a way that you can get the specified functional complexity of a cell. And I have to ask you a question.
Wait. No. You're saying that I need to argue how natural law can create a cell.
Yeah, because my argument is the only thing capable of originating that kind of specified functional complexity.
Why would you think I could do that?
You can't. Nobody can. That's my point.
Nobody can right now. That's like asking somebody in the Dark Ages to explain atomic theory.
Okay, now let's go ahead and that's a great comment to make, because here's what I want to ask you.
But that doesn't mean that atomic theory isn't a thing.
Robert, let me ask you this. How many examples do we have of an intelligent mind being able to originate specified functional complexity from something that's not already specified, complex, and functional. In other words, how many examples do we have of books, machines, computers, anything that has to have a very particular arrangement to carry out a specific function like the elements in a cell? How many examples do we have that support that intelligence is a sufficient cause to create that?
Okay.
How many examples?
Let me take one break and say to the listener right now, listen to Eric. Listen to how he's formulating his argument. How would you answer this? Would you answer it with passion, with anger? Would you try to ignore it? Would you try to skirt around it? Or would you reduce the argument down to exactly what's happening right now? A fallacy. Eric, what you're doing is you are promoting the argument from ignorance, and you're trying to change the responsibility of who's supposed to make this argument, right?
No, Robert, you
You're
are
changing,
so deluded
you're
on
changing
this.
the burden of proof.
I want you to understand, this is a demonstration
So you're
of the
saying,
suppression of the life of an atheist.
You're saying
okay?
name one other possibility. So you're trying to say, Robert, give me another explanation. And you're trying to allow me to provide my own burden of proof. I'm not even asking you to do that yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. But I'm not wrong that that's where you're... Eric, I'm not wrong that that's where you were going, am I? Being honest, we're both legitimate people. We both know where that was leading.
You're not wrong, but you're failing to understand something, Robert. I have already stated that intelligence, we know, is a sufficient cause to create the effect of specified functional complexity. And I'm just going to ask you to go on record to state what you think is another sufficient cause. Because just like the BB was a sufficient cause to create the hole in the window, we don't know for sure if it was the BB, but we do know it's a sufficient cause. We haven't established that it's a necessary cause because it could have been a bullet, or it could have been a little pick, or there's a number of things it could have been.
But something intelligent had to shoot it through the window, right?
That's not part of the argument. But my point is this. My point is we also likewise know that a sufficient cause to originate specified functional complexity is intelligence. Do you not agree at least with that? Yes or no?
Say it one more time for me. I'm a little slow.
Okay. We know that intelligence is a sufficient cause to originate specified functional complexity.
Specified functional complexity. I have already explained that I've already explained that your definition of specified complexity applies to everything.
No, it does not, Robert.
Name something that is not specified complexity.
Okay, specified functional complexity means that it has to be arranged in a particular order in order to carry out the function, Robert.
Wait. What do you mean it has to be arranged? You mean someone has to arrange it?
Well,
are you saying that an intelligence has to arrange it?
If you can demonstrate that natural law is capable of arranging it in that manner, and you can go ahead and prove it, then you completely demolished my case.
So does natural law create a rock?
Yes, natural law can create a rock. A rock is not specified functional complexity.
Because by definition, specified complexity means it has a designer, correct?
No, specified complexity means that the complex arrangement of the matters it is absolutely significant. The manner in which
it was designed for a function?
Yes. And no, it's designed for a function and it's specified and complex.
Okay. I don't want to be crude, but it's the first thing that pops to my mind here. The penis has a function, right?
It's a living organism. It's incredibly complex already. You have to go to another planet. You can't use life on planet Earth because that's the point of our discussion. The point of our discussion is not does the Earth have life? Go to Mars and make your argument.
Let me use another example. A bird. Does a bird have a function?
A bird is incredibly already specified, functionally complex, Robert. Go to something that is not living. We're trying to determine the origination of life and something which is very specified and very complex and has to have a very specific arrangement of the atoms that are in it or it will not function.
So a bird has a function, but a rock does not have a function. And that's why there's a difference in specificity.
I didn't say that a rock didn't have a function. A rock can be used as a paperweight, okay? But the point is that the arrangement of the matter on that rock is not. It can hold down the weight, whether it's round or square or whatever.
Are you saying a rock is random?
Okay, Robert. I'm saying a rock is simple order. It's complex, or a rock can be complex, but it's not specified. Okay? There's no,
because
there's
by definition, specified means it's intelligently designed, correct?
Well, let's put it this way. If you're saying the only thing that we know that is a sufficient cause for functional specified complexity is intelligent, the answer is yes. But I think it's interesting that
Eric,
you're evading my question.
I'm not evading. I'm just trying to make it clear to you. That's what circular reasoning is.
Robert, this has nothing whatsoever to do with circular reasoning. I can't, if your listeners are listening to this, anybody who could come to that conclusion, I can't even understand.
I can tell you right now. I can tell you right now, Eric. Every one of them are coming to that conclusion.
Really?
You are the only person not getting this.
Okay, let me go ahead and state this, Robert. Okay, since if you're going to make that kind of a claim, I am saying that intelligence is the only thing capable of producing functional specified complexity like we see in a cell. Now, what I'm going to ask you is go ahead and tell me one other thing that can originate that kind of specified complexity. If you can, then I'm dead wrong. If you can't, then I've made my case.
Whoa. One other thing that can make a cell other than what?
One other thing that is capable of producing the kind of specified functional complexity you see in a cell, other than intelligence. Because we know intelligence is a sufficient cause for producing
intelligence don't make
functional
cells. A cell's not intelligent. Cells replicate and make other cells. That's the definition of life. Part of what life is, it has to be a semi-permeable membrane. It has to absorb energy. It has to release the energy. It has to be able to replicate. Cells create other cells. Cells aren't intelligent. So there's one example.
Robert, okay. Again, the argument, you're missing what the very statement of the argument is, okay?
Mm-hmm.
My argument is that the only known cause capable of originating.
Okay. Abiogenesis, the beginning of life itself. I don't know what did that. And you don't really know what did that. You believe what did
Robert,
that.
do you even understand what you're doing here? It's like you're not seeing the point.
Am I being dishonest?
Are you being dishonest?
Am I at least being elusive,
What you're doing is because of your atheist position, you're literally completely, utterly ignoring all of the proof and argument that I made at the beginning of this, which is this. When you look at the window, I asked you to give a cause sufficient to break the window, and you gave me tons of them. When I told you about the round little circle, you gave me a couple of causes. And in the same way, when I asked you about the paper, you said there was only one cause. I am arguing that the only cause that mankind knows of that is capable of originating specified functional complexity. So for purposes of this, the only known cause we know that is capable of producing a functionally specified complex machine is intelligence. Because inside of a cell are hundreds of very complex machines that have to work precisely. All I'm asking you is if you can give me one other cause. You weren't able to give me another cause for the burned paper.
No,
and I'm saying...
But I was for the cell. Give me a second.
What cause?
Give me a second. All right. You're telling me I'm having trouble. Let me say it back to you, and you tell me if I'm making sense, okay?
Yeah.
Maybe I am misunderstanding, all right? A cell is made up of lots of stuff, right? Mitochondria,
no, it's made up of very complex
ribosomes,
machinery.
Chromosomes, whatever, cytoplasm, protein, all this stuff, right?
Machines, Robert.
None of those things are alive, but all of those things working together, which I guess you would characterize as specifiedly complex, right? All those things working together create a life. The basis of, just take one of those things. Take the protein, for example, okay? The protein is not alive, and it is made up of amino acids, which are not alive. And those acids just break down to chemistry. It's just what different things connect to each other in what shape, and that creates things. None of these things are alive, but all of them working together create life, right?
Okay, notice
life,
Robert.
Eric, let me be clear. Life from non-life. Now you say, well, hold on, Robert. All those things together happen as a result of life that was before that. And I say, yes, that's the whole argument right there. One cell creates another cell, but neither of these cells are intelligent.
Robert, let me ask you this. Do you think that in order to design a cell from a living cell from something that's not living, do you think that it's going to be necessary that we use intelligence? Yes or no?
I see zero.
Yes or no?
I see zero evidence for that.
Okay. I don't even know what to say to that. Did you understand my argument, Robert? Or my,
yes, sir.
my question, rather, not my argument.
Let me say your question back to you, and you tell me if I have it right, because this is how a proper discussion follows. If I can't say it back to you in a way that you would agree, then I missed your point, and I want to be legitimate and honest with you.
I appreciate.
You're saying, is there any way that a cell could happen without intelligence? Is that right?
No, that was not the question that I just asked. Now, I do agree with that, but that is not the question that I just asked you.
Okay, well, I apologize. Go ahead. Hit me one more time.
If we were going to create a living cell.
Well, you're already screwing up. You're already screwing up with that.
Okay,
you're saying if we create
Robert.
I can't create a cell, can you?
No, I can't, but let me ask the question. If we were
But a cell can create a cell.
Okay.
It's meiosis and mitosis. It happens all the time.
Robert. Okay. All right. Let me back up because I think that you're missing. You're missing so much of this argument, Robert. I need you to say this word, originate.
Originate.
Okay. Okay. I'm talking about creating a specified functionally complex cell from something that is not already specified.
That definition by itself is circular reasoning, Eric. You should stop using it. Specified complexity is circular reasoning. You're saying, how can you create something that was designed without it being designed? Well, by definition, I guess you can't. It's almost like saying, did an author write the book? Yeah, but by the definition of author, he's the guy that wrote a book. You're trying to present an a priori term into a synthetic a priori argument.
Robert, I cannot believe that you are so missing this point. But let me tell you the reason why. Because do you know that for you to get this point, you pretty much you have no choice but to basically give up atheism. And that's the reason why you're so resistant to it. You're not resistant to it because I just want you to notice you have not yet given me one other cause capable of originating specified functional complexity than intelligence. And if you do, I want you to go on record for your whole audience, for the whole world to listen to it. Give me one other sufficient cause.
Your question is no different than if I asked you, when did you stop beating your wife?
No, it is so drastically different, Robert.
That question,
notice,
you can't answer that question because the question is ill-formed, because it's a logical fallacy.
I'm going to give you a piece of advice, Robert. You need to stop doing the show and go into politics because that is political talk. That was absolutely evading the question, which you've done so successfully. No. Every single time I ask it, you do not answer it.
And answer my question. When did you stop beating your wife?
You know what, Robert? Again, it's completely...
Don't evade it. Don't evade the question.
It has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying.
No, you're not saying it.
Your question is a logical fallacy.
No, my question is not a logical fallacy. Yeah. Okay, Robert, do you even understand the craziness of that comment? I want you to listen to what you're saying. My question is this, okay? You didn't have any problem when I asked you about the window, when I asked you about the BB, when I asked you about the paper. I said, Robert, give me another cause capable of doing it. Mm-hmm. Now, I've already demonstrated that intelligence, and we all know it, that intelligence is a sufficient cause to create specified functional complexity. So can you, without going political on me, without going politician on me, can you give me one other cause sufficient to originate specified functional complexity other than intelligence from something that's not already complex?
Specified complexity by definition requires intelligence, yes?
That's my argument. I agree completely.
Okay, so
specified functional complexity.
Hold on, bud. Hold on.
You notice you're not answering the question.
Hold on. Specified complexity requires intelligence, and you just asked me to give you an explanation of specified complexity.
No, I didn't. I said give a cause, Robert. A cause.
Okay, something that's a cause that's not from intelligence that's specified complexity. Okay? Do you see how that is a logical fallacy?
No, but I guarantee you, and I just want you to know, Robert, you're horribly losing the point here. Horribly.
Okay, let me one more time.
You're literally evading the answer, and I know why you're evading it.
Does specified complexity require intelligence? Yes or no?
Okay, specified complexity is an effect, Robert. We're trying to determine a cause.
Is it an effect that causes something that comes from intelligent design, yes or no?
Is it an effect?
Does specified complexity require intelligent design?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Then whenever you say, Robert, name something that is specified complex that didn't come from something intelligent, do you recognize that you're asking me when I stop beating my wife?
No, I'm not. No, that is so full. You're so full of baloney, Robert. I am not asking you that. I'm asking you to give me another cause. I cannot believe
another
that you're saying
cause
that stuff. Yes.
Besides something intelligent?
Robert, okay, listen, okay? I go ahead.
How could I produce a non-intelligent cause of specified complexity if by definition specified complexity is intelligent?
It is not by definition intelligent. I don't know why you're asking that. It's an effect.
Is it an effect?
Specified functional complexity does not have to. It may exhibit intelligence, but tons of specified functional complexity has nothing to do with intelligence. Except that intelligence had to be its
specified
source.
Complexity does not have to be intelligent. Yes or no?
No, it does not.
Specified complexity does not have to be intelligent.
No, a book is not intelligent, but it's functional, specified, and complex.
But it does have to come from intelligence.
It has to come from intelligence, and then what I'm asking you is can you go ahead and demonstrate that you can get specified functional complexity from something that is not already, can it originate from something that's not already specified and functionally complex? And I'm saying just give me another cause that is not already specified, functional, and complex that is capable of originating that kind of thing.
So I would have to give you something that isn't specified complexity, right? Like you're saying specified complexity comes from intelligent design.
Let me try to make this. Let's try to make this a little bit more simple, okay? And I'll try to chill out here. But I cannot believe it. I think that this demonstrates the resistance because it would destroy atheism if this point is right. So let me try to make it a little bit more clear. Let's say you and I get on a spaceship, we go to Mars. There's no life on Mars, right?
As far as we know.
Okay, as far as we know. We get on there and we see a little transistor radio. Do you know of any natural law capable of originating that kind of specified functional complexity? Or would you immediately assume that somewhere an intelligent origin, the only known cause capable of originating something like that is intelligence?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, give me another cause capable of originating that.
Yeah, I would immediately agree this is probably from some kind of intelligence. Yeah.
Okay, so then when you see a living cell, if the only known cause that we can attribute to that kind of specified complexity, and a living cell is 100,000 times more complex than a simple transistor radio. So we don't know what caused it, but my argument is this, Robert. If we're going to give a cause, the only cause any of us know that is capable of originating that type of product is intelligence. So if you're going to be a person who lives their life by evidence...
Classic watchmaker argument.
Okay,
but
is a classic watchmaker
you know
argument.
the flaw with the watchmaker thing, right? You're walking on the beach, you see a watch in the sand. I mean, you know the problem.
You're going to kill yourself on this, Robert. You're going to die on this argument, I bet.
You said I'd die on the last one.
Go ahead and get it while you order your tombstone. Go ahead.
All right. Here lies Robert Stanley.
Here lies an atheist all dressed up and no place to go.
Let's say you have a painting.
No, go to the watchmaker. You were going to destroy you were telling me the flaw of the watchmaker. Go ahead and I'm all ears.
I was be kind enough to use a painting because it makes it easier, but we can use the watch.
We'll go to the painting too.
All right. The watch is a little more complex because you have to think of like millions of watches on the sand. It's a little weird, but I'll use that, and then I'll use the painting to explain it. So if you're walking on the beach and you see a watch on the sand, right? The way that you determine that this thing is unnatural is because it isn't from nature. Nature doesn't produce it. So we assume that nature produces the grains of the sand on the beach, the ocean water coming up, the tide goes in, goes out. As Bill O'Reilly would say, we don't know how that works. But anyway,
we can watch it take place.
We contrast non-natural from natural, and that's how we determine that it was intelligently designed, just like that watch. The only way that your scenario would be true, that everything's designed, would be kind of like seeing an entire beach shore composed, instead of grains of sand, but tiny little watches, right? And then the ocean water comes up full of not water, but some kind of fluidic watches, right? And there's just watches everywhere. The sky's watches. You're actually a watch standing on a pile of watches on a whole planet of watches. And that's why I really don't like Watchmaker, because it really is kind of silly. And I try to use the picture analogy and saying, if I drew a picture of a tree and I hammered a nail into the tree and then I hung that picture of a tree on a tree, all right? And you're looking at the picture of a tree hanging on a tree, right? Very, very simple. How do you tell the difference between the two? Well, because the picture does not occur naturally. The tree does. So the whole argument of intelligent design.
There, Robert. The tree occurs naturally. You showed that you completely, utterly, totally, beyond measure missed my argument. The tree does not occur naturally. If it occurs naturally, why are there no trees on Mars, Robert? As a matter of fact, Robert, do you remember how many planets that they say that there are? There's 100 billion trillion. So let's go ahead and take a look at the possibility.
Wait. Are you saying a tree doesn't occur naturally?
Okay, I am saying that a tree is it originates from
a tree's not on the surface of the sun. That doesn't mean it doesn't occur naturally.
Robert, what other planet is a tree on?
There are environments that a tree
can't live in.
What
other planet is a tree on? Robert, do you know
there's
any?
environments, Eric, there's environments a fish can't survive in. That doesn't mean that a fish isn't part of nature.
No, just answer my question. What other planet is there a tree on? As a matter of fact, what other planet is there a fish on? How many other planets do you have, Robert? 100 trillion billion. Now, let's go ahead and considering that you're going to argue that natural law is capable of originating the kind of complexity in a cell, let's go ahead and look at the chances of where life is. Because if you take a look at what the Bible says God created the earth to be inhabited. And it says all of the other planets and stars were created for lights and times and seasons. So now, if somebody found life on another planet, it would completely destroy that argument, okay? But the reality is, do you know you have 100 billion trillion opportunities to prove me wrong, Robert? And let's see how many came out successful for you. Let's see, there's, no. I think you got zero other planets, Robert. So the reality is that once again, even though you have 100 billion trillion opportunities to prove it wrong, what the scripture says, the reality is only on life do we have the kind of, only on earth do we have life and the kind of complexity that we see here. And so again, it supports my point that when it comes to specified functional complexity, the only known origin for it is intelligence.
I didn't follow any of that.
I'm just saying, if you're gonna argue that you don't need intelligence,
you're saying because we have no evidence of aliens, therefore God?
We have 100 billion planets that give the opportunity for your argument to demonstrate itself to be valid, and it's demonstrated it not once.
That's not God of the gaps to you?
Once. That is what?
You're referring to the lack of scientific exploration as a defense for God. That's God of the gaps.
No. And you know what? I am saying that you don't have any supportive evidence, okay? You don't have any supportive evidence otherwise. But the God of the gaps is absolutely not a part of premise number 8 or any of my premises, Robert. My premise is that the only known cause capable of originating specified complexity is intelligence. And I just want it to be known to your listening audience, to the world, that you cannot refute that point. You cannot give another cause capable of originating the kind of specified functional complexity.
That's argument from ignorance. Eric, that's argument from ignorance. That's argument from ignorance.
Robert,
you're saying you can't give another point.
Ignorance. Okay, I'm not going to let you get away with that, okay? Because saying that it's an argument from ignorance is like this, Robert. That would be like me saying to you, listen, when you said it was a BB or a bullet that hit the window, it's an argument from ignorance. You would look at me and say, what are you, a moron? We all know that a BB can make that kind of, create that kind of effect. So for you to say that my argument is an argument from ignorance.
It wouldn't mean that a BB did it.
Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the only known cause we have, when we go to the paper though, Robert, it would be the heat that did it, okay? And if you can you go ahead and offer another cause capable of producing that kind of effect, Robert? If you can, do it to your audience right now.
If I can produce another cause for that paper having
besides heat,
like a brown singed look on the corner?
A burned look, where a scientist would look at it, they could take it into a lab and say this was produced by something besides
I mean,
heat.
it seems kind of silly, but yeah, I guess artistic stuff. There's CGI. There's, I could do
Robert,
something
the
with
paper is on the
painting.
table. The paper's on the table.
I mean?
You've got the ash. You're holding it in your hand.
I mean, we're
not talking CGI, Robert.
Well, I'm just saying, like in the movies, there's things that appear a certain way all the time, and we don't actually think that there
Robert, why are you going to the movies?
Because I'm trying to show you that
okay, Robert, you need to go
we can deceive ourselves.
Yeah, you clearly have, and plenty.
I mean, you brought up a ridiculous example. I'm giving you a ridiculous answer, but
it's not a ridiculous example.
Fair.
Robert.
There's things all the time that.
Okay, hold on. I want to back up. I want you to state what is the ridiculous example. The ridiculous example was that paper that has a burned corner that you could only think of one cause for it. So if that's a ridiculous example, you're the one who came up with the answer, Robert.
I can think of more than one cause for that.
What is it?
That someone tried to deceive you.
Hold it. They tried to deceive you with... I'm asking you for a cause that can produce the effect, Robert.
Yeah.
Heat can produce the effect.
And that's the whole idea.
If they were trying to deceive you,
but hear me out. That's the whole idea of special effects, is that it makes something appear a certain way.
Okay, so tell me special effects.
So as to generate some kind of emotional intensity as to how it would react to the same thing. Is the same way that if you and I were looking at each other and I just start crying, right? I'm not actually having an emotional thing. I'm just a good actor. I perpetuate an emotion in you.
Paper, okay? When somebody doesn't have an answer to a question, they move away from it, okay? I'm asking you to give another cause.
You asked me a simple question, and I said, hey, it could be something other than fire, sure.
I'm asking you, what is that cause? What is that cause that could produce that effect?
Well, like I said,
I want you to demonstrate
You could use some kind of special effects. You could color the paper. I mean, it's a silly thing. Yeah.
Special effects. So they're going to put powder on it, and nobody would be able to recognize that. Oh, this is just.
I could create something on my computer right now that looked like something was burnt, but it wasn't really burnt. It's not a big deal.
Robert, I'm not talking about a computer-generated image. I'm saying a piece of paper on the table that has ash, okay, in front of you. The point, okay, but again, Robert, here's my point. My point is that unless you can go ahead and demonstrate that something besides intelligence is capable of originating, which means not a tree makes another tree, but it doesn't originate it from something that's not already specified complex. That's like saying because a woman has a baby that specified complexity can occur. Well, she's already functionally specified complex. You got to go to a planet where there is no functional specified complexity. Any other planet in the entire universe. And then tell me...
Are you saying Jupiter isn't specified complexity? Jupiter has no life as far as we know.
Okay, functional specified complexity.
But also at the same time, you're claiming Jupiter was created by an intelligent designer. How do you get out of that paradox?
Okay, I'm not. That's not part of my argument, Robert. You're literally directing it away.
Let me throw another one at you.
Jupiter is not specified functional complexity.
All right.
Okay, there's 100,000 ways it could be arranged.
So does that mean that Jupiter wasn't created by an intelligent designer?
No, because an intelligent designer could easily create something like Jupiter.
While you're thinking about that, let me ask you this one, okay? If something can't come from nothing, right?
Yes.
How is God here?
Okay, because we've already determined that, Robert. Something is eternal. And we've already determined by these premises that whatever is eternal is transcendent. It's a source of all things created. It's a source of all power, and it's intelligent. And unless you can give another cause for specified functional complexity, you have to agree that it's intelligent. And so therefore, by definition, if it's eternal, transcendent, the source of all things created, has all power, and intelligent, I think by pretty much anybody's definition, that's God.
What was your number one premise again?
Existence does not come from non-existence.
So therefore, existence is either a result of other existence or it's eternal, right?
Yes.
Is there anything eternal other than God?
If it did, it would have to exhibit the same characteristics of what I just told you.
Which would pretty much be God.
Well, the evidence that we have, yeah.
Do you recognize that that's special pleading?
Robert, I don't understand how it's special pleading, but it still doesn't.
You're saying this one characteristic applies to only one thing and nothing else. That kind of logic just
Hold it. I don't
isn't
understand
accepted
that
within
comment.
philosophical discourse. We blow that off immediately because I could make that claim about anything.
Hold it. You can make. I lost you there. Sorry. You got to back up and make your point. I don't get it.
Okay. Special pleading is whenever you say, here is an axiom that applies to everything except this one thing. But by doing that, there's no way to refute your argument, right?
Hold it. Why does it apply? I don't understand why you would say that it applies to everything.
You're saying
but this
everything has to come from something except God.
I did not say that. That's nonsense.
You're saying everything other than God
No,
comes from
I'm
something.
not saying that. I'm saying if something is eternal, by definition, it didn't come from something else, Robert. That's if I had a cup.
Potato, it's the same argument, Eric.
No, it isn't, Robert. If something is eternal, which we've demonstrated that it's eternal, then it didn't come from anything. It's eternal. That by definition, it didn't come into existence. It's eternal. That's what that means. If it's eternal, it didn't come into existence. So what we know is that there is something that's eternal. How did that happen? When did it happen?
How did that happen?
Oh, okay, Robert.
How can something eternal be without a cause?
Well, ask Lawrence Krauss, because he argued that there is an eternal transcendent cause.
I'm asking you. How can something eternal be without a cause? How can anything be without a cause?
If it's eternal,
that's almost like saying something could come from nothing. That's preposterous.
Robert, if it's eternal, it wouldn't need a cause. That's preposterous to think that it would. By definition, something eternal does not need a cause.
How is it here?
Okay, Robert, listen, I just want you to know that you're going back to all of this stuff that you already agreed to, okay? And I'm just saying that my arguments clearly demonstrate
I'm trying
that
to represent that the fundamental essence of your argument is special pleading, and that you're making claims about this concept of nothing that I don't think you can really make. I don't think either of us can. We're both in a similar boat here. We're both evangelical
Robert,
about our beliefs.
Made are the claims that Lawrence Krauss made.
But
there's a transcendent eternal something.
We both can't prove what happened before the Big Bang.
Robert, I've proved my case. I gave you the opportunity. Okay, let me ask you
claims. Certainly.
No, Robert. Refute one. Which premise can you refute?
Well, I did have issues with the terminology that you used on 3 of them.
I said, which one can you refute?
And the last one, you didn't prove at all.
Okay,
Number 8.
Robert, are you kidding me?
Yeah, you went into this whole specified complexity.
On the planet, Robert, are you kidding me right now? No person on the planet who is measured by any degree of societal norms that has a brain is going to argue that intelligence is not a sufficient cause to produce specified functional complexity. We all see it happen 100 million times over. When somebody writes a book, that's an example that it's a sufficient cause. I'm asking you to give one other cause sufficient to produce that kind of complexity. Can you do that, Robert?
You're saying a non-intelligent source creating life? Because that happens all the time. That's constant.
Really? Okay. I didn't say a non-intelligent source of life. I said something that's not specified, functional, and complex. It's kind of like the eternal thing, okay? But anything specified, functional, and complex.
By your definition, is specified, functional, and complex. But it doesn't come from an intelligent designer.
Oh, really? So I want you to give me...
No, one cell creates another cell. And a cell is not an intelligent designer.
Okay, Robert, I have not... as clear as I've tried to make this point, I apologize, because clearly I have not made it clear enough. I'm using the word originate. That's why I told you to get off planet Earth in your mind. Go to another planet, because you're so used to thinking of life on Earth where we have tons of life. We have trillions and trillions of things on Earth.
What other example do we have? That'd be like you telling me think of a painting, but don't think of a canvas or using any kind of paint or a paintbrush.
Robert, we're trying to determine the origination, the cause capable of producing a certain... No,
Eric, we're not going to do that. That's beyond our capability.
Let me tell you what's going to happen.
We can't explain abiogenesis right now any more than people in the Dark Ages could explain atomic theory.
Okay, let me tell you what, though. What we can say is that the only known cause capable of originating that kind of complexity is intelligence, Robert. And if you have another one, I have been all ears waiting to hear something capable of doing it. And I want you to notice how quickly, if I ask you anything, if I asked you, how did that window get broke? Mm-hmm. You could come up with a ton of causes. You wouldn't sit here and go, oh, that's an argument from the fallacy of
Eric, I'm sorry that a BB through the window is different from the creation of all life on Earth. Yeah, these are very different things with very different explanations. And one of them we can postulate. One of them, we have to be humble before the universe and say, we don't know. And if you do know and you can prove it, then, buddy, you better go get your Nobel Prize, because you just changed the entire scientific community. You just turned it over on its head.
And you know what? I did change the entire scientific community if the scientific community is going to, if the scientific community is going to go by the evidence that we have, because the scientific community
why wouldn't they do that?
Hold on, Robert. The scientific community, the only argument, I want you to know that my argument comes from the strongest backing of the scientific community, and that is this. The scientific community agrees that there is only one known cause capable of originating specified complexity. And if you say not, then go ahead and get a slew full of scientists on your program and have them give another cause capable of originating specified functional complexity.
Eric, if they know it's intelligently designed, why wouldn't they admit it?
Are you kidding me? That's like, why wouldn't the abortionist admit that a baby in the womb that's 20 weeks old is a human being? Because it means they have to change their whole way of thinking. That's why, Robert.
I don't want to get off on abortion, but I'm just saying.
I don't want to get off on abortion either. The point is that the reason that they don't change their mind is because it means they don't have to change their lifestyle.
So you're saying there is a conspiracy at like NASA, the UN, the Pentagon, other countries.
You know what, Robert? You're taking this argument so much farther than it needs to go.
I'm just saying it's a little wacky.
Let me go ahead and make this simple. Get a scientist on your program that can give you another cause capable of originating specified functional complexity, and you can prove me wrong if he can do it.
Once again, it's argument from ignorance, buddy.
No, it's not an argument from ignorance, Robert. Because my argument is that intelligence is a sufficient cause. So if you're going to look at the complexity in a cell, I'm saying the only thing we know that's capable of originating that kind of complexity from something that's not already specified functionally complex is intelligence. And I have asked you, I have pleaded with you, I have begged you, give me one other cause. When I asked you for a cause about the broken window, you had no problem. You didn't go into some long dissertation, political maneuvering, sidestepping the issue. So
because you weren't asking me about the origins of life.
I wasn't asking you about the origins of life when it came to a cell. I'm asking you, give me a cause.
You were presenting some kind of like Kalam cosmological argument. Like, I mean, that's a totally different thing that we're going to have a philosophical discussion about. That's different from somebody shot a BB through my window.
No, it isn't, because I'm asking you what the principle of uniformity says, that similar effects have similar causes. So when we look at a cell and we think, okay, I don't know how this came to be, but what I do know is that there are certain causes that we have that are capable of originating this kind of complexity. One of them is intelligence. Another one is...
Wait. Show me an example where intelligence has created a cell.
Robert, I didn't say I was going to give you an example of intelligence creating a cell. I said if we look at other examples where we find that kind of complexity, the machinery we see in a cell, the only thing we know capable of originating that kind of machinery from something that is not already complex is intelligence.
I've never seen intelligence cause abiogenesis.
Every time abiogenesis, I mean, you've never seen intelligence create abiogenesis, okay? You know what, Robert? That's my argument. The point is you didn't see the window get broken. You have to, if you're going to go ahead and try to figure out what could have done it, my argument is that the only thing we know capable of doing it is intelligence. I'm not saying we saw intelligence do it. When you walk in a room and you see somebody lying on the ground and they're dead, you may not know what caused that person to die. But past experience gives forensic scientists the ability to determine what are the possible causes of this, what are the possible causes as to why this person died. And I'm saying that when we look at the possible causes for the kind of complexity and machinery we see in a cell, the only known cause we've ever been able to come up with capable of originating that complexity is intelligence.
You know what? You're right, and I am willing to accept Christ as my personal savior right now. I'm being funny. I'm having a good time. We're at the 2-hour mark, buddy.
I want you to know that when you have to stand and give an account, that's one of the things that an atheist that's why I asked you, Robert. Did you watch those videos that I told you about?
I will give God a chance to apologize to me for the Holocaust.
Let me ask you this, Robert.
But
did you watch those videos? Did you watch those videos that I asked you to watch?
I think I watched everything you sent me. I believe I did, but I don't want to be dishonest and assume that I did.
Okay, so
because I would hate to claim knowledge of something that I can't know.
Okay, you would remember if you watched The Hidden Life of the Cell and the other one that I forwarded you. It's kind of difficult to forget those. Right, they display a complexity and an intelligence, Robert. Again, and this is one of the things that I asked you before that you evaded. I said, if men are ever to create a living cell, are they going to have intelligence to do it?
Yes sounds like no? They would. That's a pretty good one. Hey, buddy, we got to wrap this up, man. We're coming up on the 2-hour mark. Eric, I love talking to you. This is what, the 4th, 5th time we've talked probably? Every time has been just this much fun. And I hope the listener appreciated it too. Is there a way that if they have more questions for you, they can get a hold of you?
You know what, Robert? If somebody feels like they would like to debate the points, they're always capable. I am one of those guys. I will make myself available. I will debate anytime. I mean, I would love to debate Dan Barker. I would love to do, if you can get him on your show, I'm happy to have people contact me if they have questions.
Yeah, he's been on twice.
It's my name at gmail.com, Eric Lounsbery at gmail.com. Any of your listeners can feel free to go ahead and contact me. EricLounsbery. That's 1 R, everybody. Eric Lounsbery. Eric, thank you so much for your time today. I hate to cut this off, but I mean, we got to stop sometime. Can we pick up right where we left off next time we talk? Because I'd love to have you back if possible. Happy to come back.
Thanks, pal. Have a good one, okay?
All right, peace. Bye.
Our contributing artists to the production are David Blair at davefreesong.com/free music and Jason Camo at aloststateofmind.com. I really appreciate Eric for speaking to us today. He didn't want to stop, and I had a little fun segment from our continued discussion after this closing. Coming up pretty soon, Mr. Lounsbery is going to be debating a former guest, Amir Aziz, a contributor to the Huffington Post and a Muslim with a very firm grasp of history. It's going to be Christian versus Muslim with an atheist moderating. That should be wild. Before that, however, we'll be talking science and totally nerding out with YouTube creator Thomas Westbrook of Holy Kool-Aid about the Here and How podcast. Between now and then, whatever you do or don't have faith in, you can always believe in your right to reason. You feel good about that? I mean, I hate to cut it off, but I just realized, this is never going to end. We're going to keep going in circles.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that you seriously need to listen to yourself, Robert. I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, I'll play it back.
You need to listen to the last point.
Maybe there's something I missed on it. Maybe. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Maybe I just fuck up. Maybe.
I do just want you to know that whenever I've asked any atheist that question, because we all know we have literally an infinite number of examples of intelligence originating specified function of complexity.
Eric, I've been going on at 2 hours. I got to stop.
Okay, I'm just saying, none of them have provided another cause. Just so you know.